Good morning. So the question is, what happens when a student comes to a teacher and says, I think you marked my test wrong. You gave me too many points because you marked one of my answers correct when it was really incorrect. Well, some teachers would say to the student, well, because you were so honest, I'll let you keep the higher score. But there are those who argue that that's not the proper response, because an educational teaching moment would be to say, okay, let me lower your score. Because in real life, there are many circumstances where honesty doesn't pay off. Meaning to say that because you were honest, because you did the right thing, there was actually a consequence. You actually lost as a result of that. But what you did do is the right thing. And that's more important than any other consequence. This week's Torah portion begins with the story of Abraham's wife Sarah passing away. And Abraham comes and buries his wife Sarah, weeps over her and eulogizes her. And there are those opinions that say that this was the final test that God gave Abraham. Most commentaries say that the binding of Isaac was the final test. But there are those that say that no, the final test was the burying of Sarah. Why? Because our rabbis tell us that Sarah died from the shock of the news that Isaac was taken to be sacrificed. And therefore, when Abraham now comes home and discovers that his wife died from the news of the binding of Isaac, the question would be, would he regret having taken Isaac and following God's instructions? In other words, the question and the test that finally faced Abraham was, after you've done the right thing, will you look back and say, I should not have done it because look what happened? My wife Sarah passed away. Or do you stand by your convictions and say, I did the right thing regardless of what the consequences may have been? And that's the final test of Abraham, and that is very often the test in all of our lives, where we know we did the right thing, but things didn't turn out the way we hoped they would. But will we look back and still say, I'm proud that I did the right thing regardless, or will I regret having done the right thing? There was a great example of this past Sunday. This past Sunday, the Buccaneers played, and Tom Brady threw and made his 600th touchdown, which apparently has never ever happened before in football history. Well, Mike Evans caught the ball, and as is customary, he took the ball and tossed it to one of the spectators in the stand. This fellow by the name of Mr. Kennedy, a young 29-year-old medical intern. And he took the ball and he was so excited to having gotten the ball from Mike Evans. But then they realized that this is the 600th ball of the 600th touchdown thrown by Tom Brady. And so he went back and asked him to give him the ball back. And Mr. Kennedy talks to the guy and then he hands him back the ball. Well, now they're saying that that ball is worth somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000. And so this fellow by the name of Mr. Kennedy was asked, do you regret having given back the ball? And in interviews yesterday, he said, absolutely not. He said, the ball doesn't belong to me. He said, Tom Brady earned that ball. He deserves it. And I have no regrets having given it back. And I was so excited to hear that answer, because that's the way we should be in life. Instead of being greedy and saying, oh, I could have made $500,000, I could have made $750,000. After all, he's only 29 years old. He's a young guy. I'm sure he could have used that money a lot more than Tom Brady could use the money. But he says, no, that ball doesn't belong to me. I don't deserve it. I didn't earn it. Tom Brady threw his 600th football touchdown pass. He deserves to keep that ball. And even now that I know that it was worth $500,000 or more, I don't regret having given it back. I'd rather have done the right thing. And that's the way we should all be in life. If you do the right thing, that's the ultimate and the greatest reward in life. Have a wonderful day.